Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is our second lecture on Brodmann cortical areas of cerebral cortex. Last time we talked about the Brodmann cortical areas of cerebral cortex of frontal lobe. Now today we will discuss with the Brodmann cortical areas of parietal lobe. Now superolateral surface of the cerebellum hemisphere, the central sulcus, rami of the lateral sulcus, anterior horizontal ramus, anterior ascending ramus, then posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus. This is precentral sulcus, superior frontal sulcus, inferior frontal sulcus on the superolateral surface of frontal lobe. Superolateral surface of parietal lobe. Post central sulcus. Intraparietal sulcus. Parieto-occipital sulcus, unnamed sulcus, transverse occipital sulcus, calcarine sulcus, lunate sulcus, superior polar and inferior polar sulcus, lateral occipital sulcus. On the superolateral surface of occipital lobe, the superolateral surface of temporal lobe, superior frontal sulcus, inferior superior temporal sulcus, inferior temporal sulcus. Now, parietal superolateral surface of parietal lobe. what are the broadband cortical areas on the supralateral surface of the parietal lobe. Now you know between central sulcus and post-central sulcus, this is post-central gyrus on the supralateral surface. And you know in front of the central sulcus is precentral gyrus. Now precentral and post-central gyri, they continue onto the upper part of the medial surface of cerebral hemisphere. So this is upper part of the medial surface of cerebral hemisphere. This is cingulate sulcus. This is an unnamed sulcus. Supraspinal sulcus, suprasplenial sulcus, parieto-occipital sulcus, calcarine sulcus. This is the part of the central sulcus on the upper part of the medial surface. And here you can see the paracentral lobule. In front of the central sulcus on the medial surface, this is the interior part of the paracentral lobule, which is continuous with the precentral gyrus. This is posterior part of the paracentral lobule, which is continuous with the post-central gyrus. In the frontal lobe, we talk about the area number 4, broad cortical area number 4, area number 6, and area number 8. And then an imaginary line here is prefrontal lobe. Here is Broca's area, area number 44, broad cortical area 44, and broad cortical area 45. Broca's area, motor speech area. Now, what are the broad cortical areas on the supralateral surface of the parietal lobe? This we divide into various areas. Number 1, somesthetic area. Also known as primary somesthetic area. Then there is parietal area. And parieto-temporal area. Now, somesthetic area, broad cortical area, somesthetic area, it is the supralateral surface of post-central gyrus. and posterior part of paracentral lobule. The Brodmann has numbered it as areas number 3, number 1 and number 2. Then parietal area, it is one of the large association area. That is superior and part of inferior parietal lobules. And Brodmann has numbered it area number 39. And area number 40. So parietal superior and part of the inferior parietal lobules, Brodmann has numbered it area number 39 and area number 40. Now parieto-temporal area, as its name indicates, part of the parietal lobe and part of the temporal lobe. It is also known as Wernicke's area. Now, this was just a summary of the Brodmann cortical areas on the superolateral surface of the parietal lobe. Now, between central sulcus and post-central sulcus is the post-central gyrus, which on the upper part of the medial surface is continued as posterior part of the paracentral lobule. This is somatostatic area or sensory cortical area. This is divided into 3 parts: anterior part, middle part and posterior part. The superolateral surface of post-central gyrus is primary somatostatic area. Primary sensory cortical area. It is the superolateral surface of postcentral gyrus, divided into anterior part, middle part, and posterior part. This is the middle part. And then posterior part. All these three parts are on the superolateral surface of postcentral gyrus of parietal lobe. Now, as I told you, the postcentral gyrus is continued on the upper part of the posterior surface of the upper part of the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere, and it is continuous with the posterior part of the paracentral lobule. So same three areas, anterior, middle, and posterior, continue from superolateral surface of postcentral gyrus to the posterior part of the paracentral lobule. Now, Brodmann has numbered these areas. The anterior area is the area number 3. The middle is the area number 1. Brodmann cortical area number 1. And the posterior part is Brodmann cortical area number 2. Same areas are here. Brodmann cortical area number 3, Brodmann cortical area number 1, the middle one, and Brodmann cortical area number 2 on the posterior part of the paracentral lobule. Now, Brodmann cortical area number 3. Functionally, this area receive sensory impulses from opposite half of the body. Just like motor area number 4 control the voluntary movements of the opposite half of the body, right motor area number 4 control the voluntary movements of the left half of the body, and vice versa. Similarly here, the area number 3 receives sensation from the opposite half of the body. The area number 3 on the superolateral surface of postcentral gyrus, and then anterior part of the posterior portion of the paracentral lobule. Number 2, the body is represented upside down. Just like we discussed in case of Brodmann cortical area, motor area 4. The body is represented upside down. For example, if we cut a section of the cerebrum, this is right cerebral hemisphere. And this is the left cerebral hemisphere. Outside is the gray matter, cerebral cortex. Inside is the white matter. This is white matter. This is right cerebral hemisphere. This is left cerebral hemisphere. And this section is at the level of the somastatic area. Area number 312. In case of frontal lobe, we draw the diagram showing the motor area, area number 4. So for the sensory area, again we draw a diagram cut at the level of the somastatic area, primary sensory area, area number 3, 1 and 2. So here again the human body is represented upside down. I told you here is the larynx, pharynx, then tongue, sensations from larynx, pharynx, tongue. Then sensation from face. Face, eyes, lips, nose, etc. Then the sensation from hand, thumb, fingers, hand. Then forearm, upper arm, then trunk, that is thorax and abdomen. Next to the trunk is the thigh and the knee. Knee. So here from below upwards, the pharynx, larynx, tongue. Then there is a face where there are eyelids, upper lip, lower lip, nose. Then hand, thumb, fingers, forearm, upper arm. Then trunk, thigh, and knee at the level of up to the supromedial border. The supralateral surface of postcentral gyrus, Broadband cortical area number 3. Now next to knee is the leg, foot and perineal region. So it continue into the, suppose this is medial surface, so here is leg, foot, and then sensations from the region of anal orifice and urethral orifice. So it is just a repetition of the reversed human body representation in the area number 4, motor area and anterior part of the paracentral lobule, area number 6, number 8. So behind the central sulcus is the primary sensory cortex divided into Broadman cortical area number 3, in the middle is number 1 and behind is number 2. And these three areas continue onto the posterior part of the paracentral lobule as 3, 1, 2 Broadman cortical areas. Now here the human body is again represented upside down. So here will be the pharynx, then larynx, then tongue, then the face, which cover the eyelids, lips, nose, etc. Then there is the hand, thumb, the fingers, forearm, upper arm, trunk, thigh, and will reach the knee. Then it will continue onto the posterior, onto the upper part of the medial surface of the cerebellum, where behind the central sulcus. Here will be the leg and sensation from the leg, foot, and perineal and urethral region. Here was motor area, anal sphincter and the urethral sphincter, but here sensation, sensory area on the opposite side of the body. In this way, the human body, it is represented upside down, just like in the motor area. Same is in case of the sensory area. This representation of the body upside down, this is known as the hominolocus. The term used for this, the upside down representation, is known as the hominolocus. It means the little man. Hominolocus, a Greek word, which means the little man inside the brain. So just like here in the motor area, the human body is represented upside down in the motor area number 4, 6 and 8. Again in the sensory area 3, 1, 2, also the body is again represented upside down. It's called hominolocus. Therefore, because we have motor area and sensory area, so the hominolocus is motor hominolocus. And the precentral gyrus, motor area 4, 6, 8. Similarly, and the sensory area is the sensory hominolocus. Next, just like in the motor area, in the sensory area, the Broadman cortical area number 3. there are centers for each area. For each part of the body. Which center? Sensory center, because we are talking about the sensory cortex. Just like in case of motor area number 4, there are centers for motor centers for each part of the body. Same is the case here in the broadband cortical area number 3, sensory cortex. There are sensory centers for each part of the body. And just like in the motor area, I told you, in the sensory area, again, these sensory centers partially overlap each other. So, same feature as the motor area. The sensory area number 3, same feature, repetition of the motor area number 4. Then the sizes of these sensory area vary. Just like in the motor area, I told you that part of the body which exhibit fine movements, the motor center for those parts will be larger as compared to those parts where the movements are coarse, gross movements, coarse movements. So similarly here, again, some areas of the body they are more sensitive as compared to the other. Therefore, the sizes of the centers of sensory area do not depend upon the sizes of different body parts, but it depends upon the sensory function. What are those? In the areas where sensory receptors are more, those areas of the broadband cortical area number 3, where those parts of the body which are more sensitive and there are more sensory receptors, the center will be larger, even if that part is smallest. And the second factor is the tactile localization. The size of these sensory centers not only depend upon the number of richness of the sensory receptors present there, second, tactile localization and tactile discrimination. So in case of motor cortex area number 4, the size of the center depend upon the movements, whether they are fine or they are not fine, do not depend upon the sizes of body parts. Similarly here, the sensory centers also vary in sizes. Some areas are very large, some areas are very small. It again do not depend upon the sizes of the body, but depend upon the areas which are more sensitive. There will be more sensory receptors in that area. And second, the ability to recognize the tactile localization and tactile discrimination very easily. What is tactile localization and what is tactile discrimination? Number one, you can see the flexor surface of the body is more sensitive as compared to the extensor. Why? Because the center for here, because it is flexor surface is more sensitive, therefore the sensory receptor will be more here as compared to the center for the external aspect, which is comparatively less sensitive, so it will be less sensory receptors. Now, number 2 is the tactile localization and tactile discrimination. What are these two features? Now, for example, I ask you to close your eyes and I will touch a part of your body. Now your eyes are closed and I touches this part of the body. So normal person will immediately localize that the object is touching the thumb. If I touch this part immediately with closed eyes, the normal person will say that the object is touching my forearm. Even he will be able to tell that it is touching the flexor surface of the forearm or extensor surface of the forearm. This is called tactile localization, to locate the site of stimulus or application of an object. So in those areas where the tactile localization is more sharp, the center for that area will be larger as compared to those areas where it is dull. So it do not depend upon the size of those areas. So tactile localization. Second, tactile discrimination. So again I will ask that to close your eyes, you will be asked that how many objects are touching? You will say one, because both the pencils, they are close to one another. Then I will slightly move apart the pencils. Again I will ask how many objects are touching your part of the body or palm of the hand. Again he will say one object. When I will further increase the distance, then the normal person will be able to discriminate that there are two objects which are touching your body. So tactile localization and tactile discrimination. So in some parts of the body, the tactile localization and tactile discrimination is more sharp as compared to the other areas. So this is another factor for which the sizes of the sensory centers, they vary. So in motor cortex, I have drawn physique of the human body according to these sizes. So according to the sensory centers in the Brodmann cortical area number 3, the supralateral surface of postcentral gyrus, because the various centers, they vary in size. So according, if you draw the physique of a human body according to the size of these sensory areas, what will be the appearance of human body? I will again draw a diagram to explain this fact. You can see here the upper lip, lower lip more sensitive than the whole face. So you can see the upper and lower lip are larger. Then again tongue is more sensitive, it is larger. In normal human being, the face is larger, comparatively the lips and tongue are smaller. But based on the sizes of sensory centers, because lips are more sensitive, tongue is more sensitive as compared to the rest of the face. So this is why the lips, the tongue are larger as compared to the rest of the head. Then you can see the hand is more sensitive than the forearm and upper arm. Otherwise, you can see in normal human being, the forearm, upper arm are larger as compared to the hand. But because hand, thumb, fingers are more sensitive as compared to the forearm and upper arm, therefore their areas are larger. Then you can see the trunk area less sensitive, so it is smaller. Similarly, the lower limb. So this will be the physique of the human body. Not only according to the sizes of motor centers, already we discussed Brodmann cortical area number 4. Similarly, the sensory cortex area number 3, 1 and 2, the sizes of the sensory centers vary not according to the sizes of different parts of the body, but depends upon number 1, the sensory receptors, when the area is more sensitive, and second, the tactile discrimination and tactile regulation is more accurate and more sensitive. So in this way, this will be the body of the of human body parts according to the sizes of sensory centers. Now, apart from this, suppose this is right cerebellum hemisphere, gray matter, and this is left gray matter of the left cerebellum hemisphere. There is segmental representation of sensory area also. Segmental representation of sensory cortex, Brodmann cortical area number 3, 1 and 2. So here you can see is the face area. Sensations from the face are carried by trigeminal nerve. So this is, here will be the trigeminal area. Sensation from the face carried by this fifth cranial or trigeminal area. Then because body is upside down, so there will be the cervical area, C8. C8, C7, C6, C5, C4, C3, C2. Cervical region segmentation from below upwards. Why? Because the body is upside down. These are the cervical spinal segments. Then there is T12. T thoracic 11. And will continue T1. Then upper lumbar. upper lumbar segments. Up to the supromedial border here. Trigeminal area, cervical region, cervical segment, cervical 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, C2. Then thoracic region start, T12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, etc. Then the upper lumbar region reach the supromedial border. Then it continue on to the posterior part of the paracentral lobule, where will be the lower lumbar segments. Lower lumbar segments. Then sacral segments. And then coccygeal segments. Again, I will repeat here. So, in the sensory cortex area number 3, behind the central sulcus, the trigeminal area, sensation from face, then cervical region, C8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2. After C2, thoracic region, 12, T12, 11, 10, etc. Then lumbar region, upper part of the lumbar region, it will reach the supromedial border. Then the lower part of the lumbar region and the posterior part of the paracentral lobule, lower lumbar region. Then there is sacral segments region and then coccygeal segment. So apart from different body parts upside down in the sensory cortex, in the other cerebellum hemisphere, apart from showing the different body parts, this is segmental representation, which is important and you should know in the Brodmann cortical area number 3, 1 and 2, the sensory cortex. Now the question arises here. This is C2. Where is C1? It is not here. First cervical spinal segment. Here is query. Next to C2, there should be cervical 1. No, there is no cervical 1. Then thoracic segment starts. Why? I told you, if you cut a section of the spinal cord, outside is white matter, inside is gray matter. A section through the spinal cord, anterolateral sulcus, posterolateral sulcus on each side, and posterior median sulcus. Here is the central canal in the center of gray matter, and I told you the gray matter is divided into various parts: anterior horn, posterior horn on each side. This is the anterior horn, this is posterior horn, this is central gray matter traversed by central canal. And you know it, outside is the white matter in the form of anterior funiculus, middle funiculus, and posterior funiculus. And you know here is the posterior median septum. A partial septum is here. Anteriorly there is no septum. Now I told you that each spinal nerve arises from the spinal cord by two roots. This is dorsal root attached to the posterolateral sulcus, This is ventral root attached to the anterolateral sulcus. The dorsal root and ventral root join together to form the spinal nerve, and the spinal nerve then divide into rami, a ventral ramus and a dorsal ramus. This is spinal nerve. So this is dorsal root. Dorsal root is characterized by presence of spinal ganglion, and this is ventral root. Dorsal root, ventral root. Dorsal root is characterized by presence of a ganglion, spinal ganglion. And this is spinal nerve, which is divided into ventral ramus and dorsal ramus. Ramus means branch. Just like a tree have roots, stem, then branches. So spinal nerve arises by dorsal root, ventral root, joined together to form spinal nerve, which then divide into rami branches, ventral rami and dorsal rami. The dorsal root is characterized by the presence of spinal ganglion or sensory ganglion. Now here, from the body, the sensory fibers, they pass through the spinal nerve, relay in the spinal ganglion. From the spinal ganglia enter into the posterior horn. These sensory fibers. From the body, touch, pain, temperature, etc. So sensory fibers, they follow the dorsal root and enter the spinal cord. And then from the anterior horn, motor fibers arise. They pass through the ventral root, spinal nerve, and then pass through the rami. So in the ventral root are motor fibers, motor nerve fibers, and in the dorsal root are sensory nerve fibers. So the motor root comprises of motor fibers. When we will cut the motor root, there will be loss of motor activities. The dorsal root comprises of sensory fibers. If we cut the dorsal root, all sensation will be lost. But because the motor root is intact, so the muscle have normal nerve supply, but sensation will be lost. And then you can see the spinal nerve, which is a mixture of motor fibers and sensory fiber. So if the spinal nerve is damaged, there is both motor loss and sensory loss. So all the spinal nerves are attached to the spinal cord by a ventral root and a dorsal root. Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, coccygeal. But mostly the dorsal root, of first cervical, spinal nerve is absent. Now it is normal. Frequently, in case of first cervical spinal nerve, the dorsal root is missing, the sensory root is missing, the ventral root, motor root is there. So because C1 mostly do not have the dorsal root or sensory root, this is why here I am not shown C1 spinal segment. This is the reason. Now this was about the area number 3, which receives sensation from the opposite half of the body. Now come to the area number 1 and 2, Brodmann cortical areas. Number 1 and number 2. We discuss with the area number 3 on the supralateral surface of postcentral gyrus and the posterior part of the paracentral level. Now what about the middle and posterior part of the postcentral gyrus and posterior part of the paracentral level? The middle one is known as the Brodmann cortical area number 1 and the posterior one Brodmann cortical area number 2. The area number 3, I told you, just receive the sensation. Just receive the sensations. The Brodmann cortical area number 1 and 2, it interpret the sensory information or sensory impulses the function of area number 3, just receive the sensations from the opposite half of the body, depending upon which cerebral hemisphere is dominant. Just sensation, but the patient cannot describe this, which type of sensation it is. It is the area number 1 and 2 which define further details about that sensation which are received by Brodmann cortical area number 3. What the Brodmann cortical area number 1 and 2 do, it interpret all the sensory information received by area number 3. Received by Brodmann cortical area number 3. Now this is an object. It is conveying sensory information about this object. For example, what is the shape of this? By sensations, I can understand that the object in my hand is elongated. It is not rounded ball-like. So the sensation which from this object is received by area 3, it is interpreted by area number 1 and 2. So by sensation, I can determine the shape, whether it is elongated or it is ball-like rounded. Number 2, temperature. I can feel whether it is cold, it is warm, or it is at normal temperature. Next, I can feel whether it is hard or soft. I can feel the object in my hand is soft or hard. So all this sensory information from this object, which is received by Brodmann cortical area number 3, is interpreted by area number 1 and 2, and area number 1 and 2 determine the further details of the sensory information received by area number 3, the size, even the shape, the hardness or softness of this object. These detail is determined by area number cortical area number 1 and 2. Now suppose if area number 3 is damaged, the patient will not receive any sensation from the opposite half of the body, depending upon the extent of damage. If area number 3 is intact, but area number 1 and 2 is damaged, the patient can feel the sensation, but he cannot describe whether this object is warm or cold, it is hard or soft, what is its shape. If the area number 1 and 2 are damaged, he cannot define it further detail. So this is the function of Broadman cortical area number 3. It just receive sensory formation from the opposite half of the body, and area number 2 and 1 and 2 further determine further detail of the sensation received by area number 3. This was the primary somastatic area, supralateral surface of postcentral gyrus, divided into anterior part, middle part, posterior part, continue onto the posterior part of the paracentral lobule, numbered by Broadman into area number 3, anterior part, middle part, area number 1, and posterior part, area number 2, which continue onto the posterior part of the paracentral lobule. Next is parietal ear. Next to it, can you see, this is superior parietal lobule, and this is inferior parietal lobule, and this is the intraparietal sulcus, and this is the parieto-occipital sulcus. Which is at the junction of parietal lobe and occipital lobe. And around it there is gyrus, U-shaped gyrus. This is unnamed sulcus. This is transverse occipital. This is called gyrus arcus parieto-occipitalis. Anterior part of this arcus parieto-occipitalis is on the supralateral surface of parietal lobe, and the posterior part is on the supralateral surface of occipital lobe. So this is intraparietal sulcus, superior parietal lobule, the anterior part of the arcus parieto-occipitalis. This is inferior parietal lobule. Now can you see the inferior parietal lobule is traversed by the upturned posterior end of the lateral sulcus, upturned posterior part of the superior temporal sulcus, and the upturned posterior part of the inferior temporal sulcus. This is lateral ramus of the sulcus. This is superior temporal sulcus. This is inferior temporal sulcus, which continue from parietal lobe into the inferior parietal lobule to some extent. So this is parietal area, and this parietal area is numbered by Broadman. This one, superior parietal lobule and upper part of the inferior parietal lobule, Broadman cortical area number 39. And Broadman cortical area number 40. This is labeled as the parietal area. Area number 39 and area number 40. Superior parietal lobule and upper part of the inferior parietal lobule. This is one of the larger association area of the brain. One of the larger association area. Now I told you that the lower part of the inferior parietal lobule is traversed by the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus, superior temporal sulcus, and inferior temporal sulcus. It is surrounded by U-shaped gyri. Suppose the posterior part of the gyrus around the posterior part of the lateral sulcus is surrounded by a U-shaped gyrus. Then again, the posterior part of the superior temporal sulcus, which extends to the inferior parietal lobule, is again surrounded by a gyrus, U-shaped gyrus. And at the same time, the lower part of the inferior parietal lobule, which cover the posterior part of the central sulcus. So these four types of gyri. Now, this gyrus is known as the supramarginal gyrus. So the gyrus, we turn around the upper end of the posterior limb of the lateral sulcus, is known as supramarginal gyrus. Now the gyrus which is surrounding the upturned end of superior temporal sulcus, this is known as the angular gyrus. And the gyrus which is around the upturned posterior end of the inferior temporal sulcus, this is known as the posterior parietal gyrus. So easy to remember its names with the word MAP. M-A-P. Otherwise it will be difficult to remember their names in sequence. M for marginal. Complete name is supramarginal, but because of this, M stand for marginal gyrus, means supramarginal gyrus. A, angular gyrus. And P, posterior. Again, this P also can be considered. So, M-A-P, supramarginal gyrus, angular gyrus, and posterior parietal gyrus, from before backward. Collectively, this area is called Wernicke's area. Here close to it, this is sensory speech area. You know the motor speech area, area number 44 or 45, on the supralateral surface of the frontal lobe is motor speech area, Broca's area. And here is the sensory speech area, Wernicke's area. This is Wernicke's area is a junction of parietal lobe and temporal lobe, lower part of the parietal lobe and posterior part of the temporal lobe. This is why it is also labeled as the parieto-temporal cortex. Part of the parietal lobe and part of the temporal lobe. Parieto-temporal cortex. Now, we discussed the primary somesthetic area, sensory cortex, area number 3, 1, 2, between the central sulcus and the post-central sulcus on the supralateral surface of parietal lobe. Then I told you here is the sensory speech area, Wernicke's area, which is at the junction and including part of the parietal lobe and temporal lobe, parieto-temporal cortex. Here area 41, 45. Broca's area, motor speech area. Now parietal area, superior parietal lobule and inferior parietal lobule, area number 39 and 40 is one of the larger association area. Now this area we will discuss later on in detail. We finished with the sensory area. After finishing with the auditory area and visual area, then we will talk about the functions of area number 39 and 40 in the next lecture. After finishing with the auditory area, visual area, because this area number 39 and 40, it lies in between very important areas, that is the sensory cortex, hearing or auditory cortex, and visual cortex in the occipital lobe, auditory cortex in the temporal lobe, and sensory cortex in the parietal lobe. So because it lies between very important sensory areas, sensory area, auditory area, visual area, the detail of this area as far as the function is concerned, we will discuss in the next lesson. Second, again, this parieto-temporal area, which is a motor speech area, which include part of the angular gyrus, the supramarginal gyrus, angular gyrus, and the posterior parietal gyrus, collectively known as the Wernicke's area, a sensory speech area, that also will be discussed in the next lecture. And the correlation with the motor speech area, Broca's area, area 44, 45. Thank you very much.